Episcopalians could at some point be praying to our parent or guardian who art in heaven. At a convention last week, Episcopalians in Washington, D.C. passed 3 resolutions. One declared the city a sanctuary diocese. The other encouraged full acceptance of transgenderism, and a third called for the elimination of gendered references to God wherever possible, in case the liturgy is ever rewritten. Reverend Alex Dyer is priest in charge at St. Thomas Episcopal Church in DuPont Circle here in Washington, and proposed 2 of those resolutions, and he joins us tonight. Father Dyer, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Tucker.
So this raises a lot of questions, but one of them is about the many millions of Episcopalians no longer with us who didn't believe anything that you've proposed. And what does that mean about them? Were they bigots?
No, I think, if you're referring to the decline in membership, that's...
I'm not referring to that, though I'm interested in the subject. But I mean, the idea that gendered language is unholy, unchristian, should be removed. I mean, that's a very new idea.
That's not exactly what it says.
Okay.
In the sense of the resolution says, asks us to draw on multiple images of God.
Yeah.
Masculine, feminine, and wide diversity that's found in Scripture, that we will, as you said, alluded to, if we decide to rewrite our prayers, what we use for prayers and worship, we want to draw on that. We don't want to take away anything. We want to add on to.
But, for example, the story of Adam and Eve that kicks off the first volume of our Scriptures is a very gendered story. I mean, God creates a man and a woman, doesn't create anybody else, just those two, and that seems complete. And it's from that model that Christians have understood gender, sex.
Yeah. And I'm sure you also know, too, that there's another Genesis story in chapter 2, where God creates Adam, and then he creates a helper, and Eve isn't identified gender until chapter 3. So I think
So do you think that Eve might not have been a woman?
Well, I wasn't there.
But is there any evidence that she wasn't?
I think what the important thing to gather away is that the important thing is that God is beyond gender. And I think when we're talking about God, we're using language, and language limits us, right? And we're talking about something that is limitless, God, that we're trying to get our heads around. But yet language is all we have in order to do that. So in a sense, we, don't want to limit the language that we use.
Well, I don't think that's crazy, but when I take 3 steps back, what I see is a church that embraces literally any fashionable left-wing social cause. If I put the New York Times editorial page up against your priorities, they're identical. And then I also see a church whose membership has completely collapsed. And I wonder if embracing fashionable left-wing politics has been bad for the church.
Well, I don't think that you can necessarily compare us to everything. I think what I saw when we got together in the end of January in the Diocese of Washington was a group of faithful Christians who got together and prayed together. We even had a wonderful sermon from a Baptist minister.
Yes.
And encouraged us to follow Jesus. And I believe that's what we were doing. So I don't do these things because of my political leanings, whatever they be. I do these things because I think I'm faithfully following Jesus. And Jesus who calls us to reach out to people on the margins and to reach out to everyone.
Look, and I embrace that, and I think that sincere Christians can be liberal. I'm not saying that at all. I drive by your church.
I believe sincere Christians can be conservative.
And I see posters attacking Trump, gun control, open borders, and it's basically the liberal political catechism. And then I look at the numbers. When I was baptized in the Episcopal Church, there were 3.5 million members. There are now fewer than 1.7 million. In D.C., your church has dropped 60% or something in the last several years.
Not quite that much, but there has been, I think there's...
Even as the city has grown. So I guess my takeaway is maybe this purely political message, which is what you're selling, isn't what people are looking for in church.
I don't believe it's a purely political message. I believe what we're selling here is trying to more faithfully follow Jesus. And so membership is a very complicated thing.
Do you think Jesus had views on gun control?
What I'm saying is basically membership has declined across denominations, not just the Episcopal Church. So I think we need to keep that
that is absolutely true. It's not across denominations. Some denominations have actually grown during the past 3 years, and none has dropped faster than the Episcopal Church.
But I think you will agree with me, Tucker, though, that as a Christian, in a sense, and your Christian viewers, we should be worried about people not attending churches across any denominations.
I couldn't agree more, but when I go to church, and it literally, as in your church, it literally could be Paul Krugman reading this week's editorial. I'm thinking, I can get that at work. maybe there's a point where politics kills the spiritual message. Do you think that's a concern?
Tucker, I would invite you to come down to our church any Sunday.
I'd be one of 75 people there, and that makes me sad because it's a beautiful church.
It is, and we are continuing to grow. I've been there about a year, and as we grow, I think what people are finding is they're looking for a church that is not judgmental. They're looking for a church that loves like Jesus.
You have a sign attacking people on the basis of gun control, attacking the president outside your
that's
church.
Not what the sign says.
I drive by them every day. Yeah. that seems pretty judgmental to me.
And you know what one of my favorite banners is?
What?
It's the one that says when Jesus says, "I never said I hated anyone."
Well, I like that.
Yeah, good. I think we can agree about that.
Father Dyer, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.